Hi guys, I have been talking about this for years. Today we are getting into my reading Notion page. So I've been doing this Notion page since I think my first one was in 2021. It's gone through a lot of phases, a lot of changes, and I think in 2023 I am at the best version of it yet. We're going to talk all about how I track my reading on Notion. This is my main form of tracking. I also use Goodreads as well, but Goodreads is not as accurate as my tracking is. First, we're going to get into why I track my reading. The first thing is intentionality. When I first started reading, I was way younger. I didn't track my reading. Now, if you're like a young teenager and you track your reading, I'm proud of you because it is so good, but that was not me when I was like 12, 13 years old. And these other reasons I'm going to get into do explain why it's intentional. I think being conscious of what I'm reading, why I'm reading, remembering which books I've read, all that kind of thing is so important to intentionality in my life. Not to get deep, but I just love being conscious of what I'm doing. I briefly mentioned this, but also remembering the books I've read. Number of books am I up to this year? I think it's around 34. So I'm not one of those people who read hundreds of books a year, but I do read a decent amount and I want to remember my thoughts and feelings and exactly what books I've read and series I'm in the middle with, and I think tracking really helps me with that. I also love comparing books and looking at the statistics side of reading. So for example, in terms of comparing books, if it's books by the same author, if it's books in the same genre, it helps me figure out how I feel about genres, authors, tropes, styles of books, all of that. And I just love statistics. I'm a social science girly. My degree is in sociology. I love having statistics and doing research on social life, and reading is like a hobby, is part of my life as a person, which is social, if that makes sense. I love looking at the statistics. I love doing my reading wrap-ups. I really want to do a big statistics video at the end of the year about all the data and information I collect. It's just very much up my alley, and if anyone else is as crazy as me like this, let me know down below in the comments. All of this basically helps me also figure out what I truly like when I'm reading. If I'm constantly rating an author like 2 stars on my tracker and it's taking me 14 days to read, then maybe I just realize I don't really like their books. For example, over the past few years, I've read a good handful of historical fiction, and a lot of them I rated really lowly, and then recently I read some other historical fiction which I rated much higher, and it made me realize, because I track all these kind of things that I'll get into, that the traditionally published historical fiction I tended on average to rate much lower than the indie published historical fiction. So all these little things I'm tracking do really help me find books that I enjoy more. And then just quickly, I want to get into the rating system I use. I use the core pile system, which is by Book Roast here on YouTube. She has her own spreadsheets of the actual rating system, which I don't use but I think are so great. I just basically add up the numbers and do the averages myself on a calculator. But if you don't know the system, I'll quickly say it. It's core pile, which stands for characters, atmosphere, writing, plot, intrigue, logic, and enjoyment. And basically what you do is you rate each of these things out of 10, you get an average, and then the number of that average lines up with a star rating. That's just how I like to do it. This is my reading Notion, and now I think I'm going to pop it up on screen, but I am also looking at my laptop down here if you see me looking down this way. I don't even know where to start. This is all of the books I've read this year. And so the columns we have are book, where I put the title, author, where I write the author's name, genre. I have this as a multi-select tab on Notion, and the genres I have in there, obviously I can just write in any and add more if I do have more, but I have romance, contemporary, alternative history, fantasy, non-fiction, sci-fi. Then I also have ones like urban, which is actually more of a prefix. So if I read an urban fantasy, I'll put the tag urban and fantasy, and if I read an urban fantasy romance, it'll be urban fantasy romance. So I'll put the tags separately. Then we have author gender, which I also have as a multi-select in case I read a book that is written by multiple authors, so I can put male, female, non-binary if there's all of those authors, which a book I'm reading at the minute does have authors from all of those categories. Otherwise I would just put female author, etc. I then also have target audience age, so I like to see which age group the books I'm reading it in. So for example, I have new adult, adult, and YA. I could also add middle grade, but I don't actually read any middle grade books at the minute. For any books on here, I can also leave that option blank. It doesn't bother me too much. So for example, I read The Defining Decade by Meg J, which is a book about being in your 20s, which is a non-fiction, and so that I defined as new adult because it's aimed at people in their young 20s. But another book I'm reading on writing craft, it's not really aimed at any age group. I guess it's technically adult as a non-fiction. I've just left that blank because I think it could be for any age group. I then also have ethnicity, and now I like to record the author's ethnicity. This is personally for me to track how diverse my reading is often there are authors who are a bit more anonymous and only share their name, so I do also have unknown if I don't know what ethnicity an author is. I also have some representation columns, the same drop down options for POC and LGBT+. In this I have 4 options I can press. It's a single select on Notion, so I can put it does have main character representation, it has side character representation, or it has main and side character representation, or no, it doesn't have POC representation. And tracking this, it is actually crazy how many books do not have any POC representation, which is just wild. And when I first started this, I just said yes and no, but I think looking at whether it's main character, side character, or main and side is really actually interesting and important. If there are characters with more diverse sexuality and gender orientations, then I also put those in. Again, main and side, or not at all. I also record the year that each book is published, and at the bottom of this I also have the median calculated. I like to see the years I'm reading like more commonly from, and also when I look back at my different trackers, because I do one tracker per year, I can see if my reading was sort of more up to date, if it was more historical, quote unquote, even if it was 5 years ago. That's one of the benefits of recording that. I then also like to record the format I read the book in, so I have physical and ebook because I've never read an audiobook before, but you could also put audiobook, which I will when I read my first audiobook or graphic novel. I also record the publisher, and I think this is really interesting to compare which publishers I enjoy and also compare traditionally published versus indie published and my preferences on that. And then when I finish a book, I record how many pages were in the book. I really like this because at the end I have a total of how many pages I've read. I then also added this in more recently. I've had a date I started the book and a date I ended the book for a while, but this year I added in the little formula on Notion. Once I've added both the date started and date ended, it will calculate how many days it took me to read the book, and this is really fun for seeing how long I took to read a book. And often if it's a shorter book, which I can see in the pages, if I took longer to read it, it might have meant it's like a slower paced book, or if it's a really high page count but I read it really quickly, this really helps me understand my enjoyment. Then I have a tick box. I can tick if it is a reread, and so this year I have done 3 rereads. And then I have a star rating, which like I mentioned is to do with my core pile rating, which we'll get into in a second, and I also have a spice rating. I then also have a progress bar, which I can put finished, DNF, or in progress. So in progress helps me track if I'm reading multiple books at the same time, and then finished, obviously I can see all the books I finished, and then DNF is really nice because I can track how many books I DNF. And then I also have at the end a tick box for a review, which is a new thing I've added this year because I'm quite behind on doing my reviews. I don't post my reviews anywhere besides talking to you guys about them on YouTube. I don't post the written ones, but I do like to write them for myself. So that was long, but that was the actual spreadsheet. And now we're going to press on a book page. In fact, I'm going to start a new one so you guys can see what the page in the Notion database looks like. I just wanted to mention here, I think I am going to put this template up on my Etsy store. If you guys are interested, you can buy this there because this has taken me a long time to develop, and I hope it might be a little bit helpful for some of you guys if you want that template and you guys do like Notion. And if you don't use Notion, I hope this is just some inspiration for how you guys can track your reading and things you can add. So we're going to open up a new book page, and I have a template called new book, and I also have a separate one called new non-fiction because I have slightly different core pile things in accordance with Book Roast's method for rating non-fiction. What that does immediately is open up this new page. It adds the font I like, it has the style, and then it also adds the in progress button, I believe. Okay, so here I have the core pile rating, and it tells me what all of the things I need to rate are. It has all the letters, and I just put my numbers out of 10 there, and then I can easily look at them, record them, and just find out the average of my phone. And then underneath I have the 5 stars, because once I've recorded the core pile and I have the average of my core piles, I will know what my 5-star rating is, so I can put that in here. And then I also put that in the actual spreadsheet. And then the same for a spice rating if you read books with that. And then I also have the space here to drag in a cover. I just like to copy it from the Goodreads page, especially like trying to find the cover of the edition I have. I drag that in here. I think that's just a really nice visual aspect. And then going down, I have some things to fill out. I have tropes to write in the tropes that the book had. Again, understanding my enjoyment of which tropes I enjoy more, but also if I am talking about book tropes to you guys, it's good to have that written down to remember if a book does have that trope. I then have the section called thoughts, which is basically just where I write my review, but again, it's not a formalized book review. I'm not posting it on Goodreads, although maybe I should start doing that. It's just the thoughts for myself, and I do tend to write it out as if I'm going to post it somewhere. I then have also added a new section called favorite scenes, and I don't know if I'll do this for every book, but I think for books I really enjoy, it'd be really cool to write down some of the scenes I loved. And then something else new is character art / significant photos. I'm really big on aesthetics, and like I said, I do have a book journal, and I do go out and collect photos that remind me of every single book I read, although I am a little bit behind on it at the minute. And when I'm doing that, I find some incredible photos, and I do have a Pinterest board for my absolute favorite books, but I thought it'd be really fun in the book page to have some photos where I'm just like, that is exactly how I imagined this place or this character, a place where I could drag that in there and look at everything to do with that book in one place, just personally for me. I feel crazy after saying all this. I set myself too many tasks or something that you really don't need to do, but this is something that I really enjoy, and if you're crazy about book tracking too, I hope you enjoyed it as well. And if you think I'm just insane, then let me know down below. If you did like this video, please do like and please do subscribe, because I'd love to see you guys next time, and I hope this gave you a little bit of inspiration, if not just some enjoyment. So thank you again so much for watching.